Claire Rhodes, who is coming to us from the UK. So she originally worked in biology and conservation, and for well over 10 years I've been part of a grassroots organization to promote the expertise of smallholders. She's now the CEO of Producers Direct, and I hope that what she will share with us is her practical experience, especially as it was mentioned, because that all the questions we are asking, how does it happen in environments where typically digital technologies are not abundant? Producers Direct has touched the life of over 1 million people and indirectly more so. So we're very lucky to have Claire here today.
So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today. It's wonderful to be with everyone in the room in person after being behind a webcam for so long, and also greetings to everyone who isn't yet here in person as well. And so today I'd like to share with you 5 lessons that we've learnt on how to work with smallholder farmers on digital innovation over the last 12 years with Producers Direct, and really how to shape the development of digital tools to really respond and answer to farmer needs. So very briefly, to introduce you to Producers Direct. So essentially, Producers Direct, we're a not-for-profit organisation, and we offer a unique model. We develop and deliver farmer-led services, both in person and digitally, with the ultimate aim of improving farmer livelihoods through income improvement and enhancing the resilience of smallholder farmers worldwide. In total, there's a bit of formatting challenge there, I think. In total, we work with an international network of over 1 million smallholder farmers across East Africa and Latin America. So Myrtle, as you were saying earlier, when sometimes researchers have challenges connecting with farmers, we're here, and I think we might be able to help with that a little bit. And so the model that we actually implement to develop that, so essentially it's in 4 parts. And what we look to do is bundle those 4 parts together to enhance farmer incomes. And those parts encompass training, finance, access to data services, and access to markets. As Nicholas from Seedlink was talking about earlier, let's just focus for a minute on how many smallholder farmers there are in the world. So essentially, worldwide, there's over 1 billion smallholder farmers who are collectively responsible for 80% of the world's food and commodities. So the potential for digital innovation to transform the livelihoods of those 1 billion smallholder farmers is huge. Yet despite rapid international expansion in mobile broadband access and the proliferation of digital agricultural technologies, of which we've already heard about so much this morning, the uptake and usage remains a challenge, and significant barriers still remain. So consequently, what we're seeing is the benefits of digital agriculture still remain largely inaccessible to most of the smallholder farmers in the world, despite it arguably being these smallholder farmers who actually need these technologies the most. And so the first lesson that we've learnt, really, and we've talked about this a little bit already with OFE, when investing in the design and testing of digital agricultural technologies, it's really important to design from the foundation of a farmer's reality, knowledge, and experience. It's really easy when we're all sitting behind our desks and our video cameras when conceptualizing an idea to underestimate the challenging context within which the smallholders that you're actually designing these technologies for are operating. And therefore, it's easy to underestimate the scale of the ask that we might be expecting of these smallholder farmers when we hope they'll actually adopt these new technologies that are being introduced. We're seeing a lot of digital agricultural technologies designed for use on a smartphone. However, let's just remember, so 4 billion people worldwide are still not connected to the internet. There's still a considerable usage gap. So 3.4 billion people who are living in areas that are covered by mobile broadband networks still don't use mobile internet. And this is particularly a challenge for women living in rural areas, who are 15% less likely to use mobile internet than men. And typically what we see with the work of Producers Direct is farmers still trusting SMS much more than smartphones when it comes to digital information services. So smartphone apps won't scale if we're not designing them within the context of these ongoing connectivity challenges. There's been a lot of talk about the opportunities for digitizing data to support precision agriculture. This is a typical data management system for a smallholder farmer. As you can see, it's not very digitized. So smallholder farmers are facing numerous significant challenges on a daily basis and face these risks without any access, hardly, to external data. And so again, while there's a huge potential for digitized data and a lot of the AI-generated prediction models that are coming through, for example, to support yield predictions, these have huge capacities to transform the realities of a smallholder farmer. But that will only happen if a farmer can actually access the data in ways that are understandable to them and that they can take action based on that data. And then those actionable insights are actually underpinned by the support services they need to implement the data insights they've learned about. This was talked on a little bit this morning. I think it's worth reiterating. So access to finance for smallholder farmers remains extremely limited typically, especially for women farmers. And so therefore, financial risk remains a key barrier to innovation and experimentation with smallholder farmers. If a farmer is unclear whether or not trialling a new technology is going to bring them any additional economic benefit, why would they take the risk of investing their time in testing it without having the financial cushion in place that allows them to innovate and experiment? Remy was talking about this earlier at the roundtable in the context of France, but this is the same the world over. And so the question to ask ourselves then is, how can investment support farmers to actually minimize these risks and feel comfortable enough to experiment? Lesson learned number 2. Trust farmers to lead in the design of the agricultural extension services, including in the development and delivery of digital agri-tech solutions. If you're designing a solution for smallholders, always involve them right from the onset. That might seem obvious to say, but actually in reality, it doesn't happen enough. At times, this can feel difficult, time-consuming, especially if you have to go back and forth in a prototyping exercise and testing multiple iterations. But it's always worth it in the end. And so with Producers Direct, farmer-led design is at the heart of our model. And what we believe is that sustained investment in farmer-led design, and as Myrtle was saying earlier, co-creation, co-development of solutions, is really key in order for the solutions to ultimately be sustainable and scale successfully. So I just wanted to share a few examples of where we found farmer-led design to be critical in ensuring that the tool or the information that we're designing for farmers is clear to them and actually easily usable. So the example here on the left, that's our work with IDEO.org and Mercy Corps on information materials that we were developing last year to help farmers respond to COVID. And as part of the design process, we established farmer design groups to test the clarity of the messaging and the visual images that were being used. And just to share some of the key insights that we learned through these farmer design groups. So while farmers were welcoming the bright colours, they thought they looked great and the design was engaging, they weren't necessarily seeing how that stylistic image actually applied to them. And so they asked us to do more work to make the graphics more literal, for example, including more photos and things. So I think always thinking about, okay, so how is the information being received? And then an example on the far right, this is the work that we're undertaking to develop a farmer-led data management system. So working with farmers themselves to actually design data management tools that can be used, either paper-based, because that's what often they're familiar with most, or digitally. And the key lesson here, again, is that the way the data is played back to farmers is critical. And it's really important to work with the farmers to understand what they need in what format. So what might seem like a clear graph or a visualization to one person is not necessarily the same for another. Another example, an example that we consider as Producers Direct as a success. We Farmers is an example that Producers Direct started as a project in 2010. And we developed it through a farmer-led design process, and then spun WeFarm off into an independent business in 2015. So WeFarm started because farmers wanted a way of sharing information with each other. And we started with the ambition of WeFarm being an internet-based solution, enabling farmers to share knowledge. But we very quickly realized it was absolutely not going to work if it remained internet-based. And so we switched to designing WeFarm for use on a simple non-smartphone, based mainly on SMS. And I'm really proud to say that that worked. And so we had a pivotal moment and a breakthrough in how WeFarm was going to succeed. And so WeFarm these days is working with over 2 million farmers in East Africa. And so we really feel it's a great example of a scalable farmer-designed solution, an agri-tech solution. So lesson number 3, farmers respond differently to the same message depending on who delivers it. This is a quote from a JPAL 2018 study, but extremely consistent with our experiences at Producers Direct. A farmer is more likely to follow advice from someone similar, and a farmer may also need to see the innovation demonstrated by their peers before they decide to adopt it themselves. So it's certainly true that farmer-led knowledge sharing can enhance the adoption of a new approach. And this isn't a new concept, we know that. Farmer field schools and demonstration plot models are well tried and tested. But then the challenge is, how do you introduce and scale digital agricultural tools? And how to ensure that there's investment in peer-led approaches to support the sustained scaling of these tools? Particularly, how are we encouraging and investing in business models that invest in farmers to introduce and scale new digital technologies to their peers within farming communities? And so this brings me on to my next point, investing in farmer leadership as a key driver to scaling agricultural technologies. So at Producers Direct, we invest in a network of farmers and youth leaders from across the communities where we work, and so far have grown this network to over 1,000 lead farmers and youth across East Africa and Latin America. And these leaders are selected on the basis that they're already experimenting with their own ideas, or they're already demonstrating that they've scaled new practices successfully. And so we continue to invest in them to showcase their ideas and innovations and grow a network of champions for innovation and good practices across the smallholder communities where we work. What's really important is that youth leaders can play a really key role in innovation and experimentation within rural farming communities, especially in relation to digital agri-tech and data services. We see youth leaders really excited to trial new ideas and innovate, and they're perhaps less risk-averse than their elderly peers and the elderly generations of smallholders within the community. And so engaging the youth, they can be real pioneers of new technologies and then can showcase those for the elderly members of the community so that the elderly members of the community can observe what success looks like before they try it themselves. And so number 5, and lastly, if the immediate short-term links to market access and income improvement are clear, this will enhance adoption of the new technologies that are being designed and introduced. To pick up on one example that I shared earlier on the work that we're doing to develop a digital farmer-led data system, we tested linking the data management on farm with the opportunity for farmers to be able to sell their products. So, for example, once we used the digital on-farm records to build a database of what crops farmers had to sell, we were then able to connect those farmers to market opportunities for those crops. And what we saw was that the opportunity for farmers to sell their products was a key driver in the farmers' interest and excitement to test the digital recording of their on-farm records. And we're now expanding that concept in our data services to look at yield predictions and are testing that with coffee farmers in Peru and looking at how they can benefit from AI-generated yield predictions and how those yield predictions can help them not only secure pre-financing for their coffee at the start of the season, but then be able to more effectively sell it as the coffee season goes on. And this is consistent with the overall impact data that we're seeing with Producers Direct so far, where we're seeing that investing in bundled services that are well connected with market opportunities have the capacity to increase farmer incomes by up to 100% annually. So just to conclude and summarize, 5 key lessons to help us ensure we're designing effective, impactful digital agricultural services to meet the needs of smallholder farmers. Firstly, design for farmer realities, knowledge and experience. Secondly, trust farmers to co-design with you. Thirdly, invest in farmer leadership. Fourth, invest in youth-led innovation. And finally, think about the income improvement opportunities for the farmers right from the beginning of the project. Thank you so much.